My husband went on a luxury resort vacation with his mother and sister, leaving me behind to do manual labor at our country farmhouse. The very next day, he called me in tears. "Honey, why are the cards blocked? We can't even pay for the hotel." My response shocked him to his core. Before we continue, let us know how you are doing in the comments, and please make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Enjoy the story. Victoria Vicky Collins never considered herself a naive woman. 40 years of life, 15 of them married to Oliver, had taught her a lot. The main rule she had learned during her years working as a CPA and VP of Finance at Apex Construction and Development was simple. Always double-check the numbers, and trust people, but verify. Her first suspicions arose in early March when Oliver suddenly started showing a heightened interest in her wallet. Previously, financial matters rarely concerned her husband. Vicky managed the family budget, paid the bills, and planned major purchases. Oliver earned a decent salary as a sales manager at Lone Star Motors. He contributed a portion of his income to joint expenses and managed the rest at his own discretion. This arrangement had suited everyone for years, but in March, something shifted. The first alarm bell rang on a Saturday evening. Vicky was making dinner when she noticed Oliver standing by her purse in the hallway, carefully examining her bank card. Catching his wife's eye, he quickly shoved the card back and offered a strained smile. "Your wallet just fell. I was picking it up," he explained, but his voice betrayed his uncertainty. Vicky nodded, pretending to believe him. But in her mind, her professional vigilance had already kicked in. In finance, there are no accidents. The following week, her suspicions deepened. Oliver began peeking when she typed her PIN at the ATM or the grocery store checkout. He did it subtly, acting as if he were just standing nearby, but his gaze invariably focused on the numbers Vicky was entering. She didn't notice it immediately, only when she accidentally turned her head while paying at the supermarket and saw her husband tensely tracking the movements of her fingers across the keypad. "You're watching me awfully closely," Vicky noted, putting the card back in her wallet. "No, I'm not, just waiting," Oliver replied, but his face flushed. Vicky decided to test her theory. The next day, she deliberately typed her PIN very slowly while buying groceries, watching her husband out of the corner of her eye. Oliver stood right behind her, clearly memorizing the sequence of numbers. That same evening, she logged into her banking app and changed the PINs on all her cards. The procedure took 10 minutes, but the peace of mind was worth it. "Why are you doing this?" her inner voice asked. "Testing a theory," Vicky answered herself. And the theory was beginning to prove true in a very unpleasant way. Oliver was clearly plotting something, but what exactly? The answer came a week later, when Vicky found her husband at the home computer in her home office. She had returned from work earlier than usual. A late afternoon meeting had been canceled at the last minute. As she walked up the stairs, she heard the sound of the printer from her workspace. The office door was slightly ajar. Oliver was sitting at her desk, printing something. On the monitor, Vicky saw the page of her banking website, specifically the card information section. "Oliver?" she called out. Her husband jumped as if struck by lightning and hastily closed the browser. "What are you doing in here?" Vicky asked, stepping into the room. "Oh, just looking for the car insurance documents. Thought maybe you had copies saved on the computer," Oliver stammered. A bizarre excuse. The car insurance documents were kept in a physical folder in the living room, and Oliver knew that perfectly well. When her husband went to take a shower, Vicky checked the printer tray. Empty. That meant whatever he had printed, he had taken with him. She opened the browser history. The most recent entries had been deleted, but Oliver had forgotten about the temporary cache files. Digging through the system folders, Vicky found what she was looking for: cached pages from the bank's website. Oliver had been studying her card details, numbers, expiration dates, limits, and had even tried to log into her personal dashboard, though unsuccessfully since she had changed her passwords. This meant business. "All right," Vicky said to herself. "Let's see what you're planning, dear husband." The next day, she installed activity tracking software on the computer. Now, any actions taken in her absence would be recorded. For the time being, she decided to observe her husband's behavior. Oliver was clearly nervous. He became absent-minded, thoughtful, and frequently talked on the phone, stepping out onto the patio or into another room. When Vicky asked who called, he gave evasive answers about work or friends. But the most interesting part began on a Thursday evening when Grace and Christine came over. Her mother-in-law and sister-in-law had always treated Vicky coolly, though they hid it behind a mask of Southern politeness. Grace, a retired high school vice principal, was used to controlling and lecturing everyone. Christine, Oliver's younger sister, was 29, unmarried, worked as a receptionist at a med spa, and believed that all of life's problems stemmed from women not knowing how to present themselves properly. This time, they arrived with a clear agenda. "Ollie," Grace began, settling into her favorite armchair in the living room. "Christine and I were talking. You've been so exhausted lately, completely worn out. It's high time you had a proper vacation." Oliver perked up. "What are you suggesting?" "Going somewhere tropical," Christine chimed in. "To Cancun, Mexico, for instance. It's beautiful down there right now. Absolutely gorgeous resorts." "That's a great idea," Oliver agreed. "I haven't had a real vacation in forever." Vicky listened to the conversation while making sweet tea in the kitchen. So far, nothing suspicious. Just a normal family discussion about vacation plans. "But here's the thing," Grace continued, lowering her voice. "You need to vacation the right way. Without all the extra fuss, without the kids complaining, without domestic chores." "What do you mean?" Oliver asked, seemingly confused. "You know what she means," Christine interjected. "If you go with the whole family, it's not a vacation. It's just a continuation of the same daily grind. The kids will whine, the wife will stress over the budget, organizing, controlling everything. How is that relaxing?" Vicky froze with the pitcher of tea in her hands. An interesting twist. "So what are you proposing?" Oliver asked cautiously. "The three of us should go," Grace said firmly. "You, me, and Christine, like the good old days when you were little. Remember when we used to go to Aunt Susan's lake house?" "Mom, that was 30 years ago," Oliver laughed. "So what? Those were happy times. No one nagging you, no one criticizing, no one counting every penny." Vicky realized the conversation was taking a nasty turn, counting every penny that was clearly a jab at her. "Think about it," Christine insisted. "When was the last time you truly relaxed? Just chilled out, without having to look over your shoulder at your family obligations?" "It has been a long time," Oliver admitted. "Exactly. And that's because you're always trying to please everyone. Your wife, the kids, your boss. When do you think about yourself?" Vicky carried the tray of iced tea into the living room and set it on the coffee table. "What are we talking about?" she asked with a bright smile. An awkward pause hung in the air. "Oh, just talking about vacations," Grace replied. "Oliver is completely exhausted. We need to plan a getaway." "Wonderful," Vicky said, pouring the tea. "I was just thinking about where we should go this summer. Maybe Florida or a cruise. It would be great for the kids. And a change of scenery wouldn't hurt us either." Grace and Christine exchanged a look. Vicky, "Sweetheart," the mother-in-law began, using the tone reserved for explaining obvious things to a toddler. "You don't understand. Oliver needs a real rest. A man's rest." "A man's rest?" Vicky echoed. "Well, yes. Without the family chaos, without the kids' tantrums, without having to constantly keep an eye on someone." "I see," Vicky nodded. "So, the kids and I are just a nuisance to his vacation." "Not a nuisance," Christine quickly interjected. "It's just, you know, sometimes a man needs a break from family duties, especially if those duties have become a heavy burden," Grace added. Vicky felt anger boiling inside her, but she remained outwardly calm. "Fascinating logic," she said. "And what do women get to take a break from? Or do women not have burdens?" "Women have different duties," Grace noted sanctimoniously. "A woman is supposed to create a cozy home, support her husband, and raise the children. A man is supposed to provide and make the important decisions. And to make the right decisions, a man occasionally needs a break from the weight of the family." "The weight of the family," Vicky repeated. "Meaning, from me and the kids." "Don't twist my words," Christine winced. "We aren't suggesting forever. Just 2 weeks of rest, and Oliver will come back refreshed and full of energy." And what will the kids and I do for those 2 weeks? You can do something productive, Grace answered confidently. At your family's farmhouse out in the hill country, for instance. There's so much work to be done. Fix up the vegetable garden, tend to the property. It's good for the kids to get some fresh air, and physical labor is very healthy for you. Vicky slowly placed her glass on a coaster. So, while Oliver is tanning on a beach in Mexico, I'll be out pulling weeds and shoveling dirt. What's wrong with that? Her mother-in-law asked, with genuine surprise. Physical labor builds character, especially for a woman. Modern women think too highly of themselves and too little of their families. Working the land will help you remember what's truly important in life. And what is truly important? Vicky asked, barely containing her fury. Family, your husband, your children, not your corporate career and your money. Christine nodded vigorously. Exactly. You see how tired Oliver is. He works like a dog, and at home he just gets burdened with more family drama. A man needs peace. Family drama, Vicky drawled. Are the kids a problem too? Not the kids themselves, but the constant chaos around them, Grace explained. Homework, soccer practice, illnesses, whining. The male nervous system can't handle it easily. But it's natural for a woman. A woman is built for it, the mother-in-law declared authoritatively. A woman has maternal instincts and patience. A man is the provider. He needs his strength for his work. Oliver had remained silent through all of this, occasionally nodding along to the words of his mother and sister. Oliver, Vicky turned to him. What do you think? Her husband hesitated. Well, in theory, it's not a bad idea. I really am exhausted, and you and the kids could relax at the farmhouse. It would be good for them. Relax at the farmhouse, Vicky repeated, digging up the garden. Not just the garden. Christine laughed. You can plant flowers, fix up the porch. It'll be beautiful. Beautiful, Vicky agreed. In that moment, she realized she was witnessing a highly coordinated operation. Oliver had clearly discussed this vacation with his mother and sister well in advance. And his bizarre behavior over the last few weeks, the interest in her bank cards suddenly all made perfect sense. They were planning to fund this luxury getaway using her money. All right, Vicky said, standing up. I need to think about your proposal. What is there to think about? Grace looked surprised. Your husband needs a rest. A wife should understand and support that. I do support it, Vicky replied. I just want to think through all the details. How much it will cost. How to organize it. What to do with the kids. Money isn't the main thing. Christine waved her off dismissively. A husband's health is priceless. Of course, Vicky agreed. Health is the most important thing. Her in-laws left an hour later, leaving behind the impression that Vicky had agreed to their plan, but she hadn't promised anything. So? Oliver asked when they were finally alone. What do you think? I think it's a great idea, Vicky replied. You should go relax. Oliver beamed. Really? I was so worried you'd be against it. Why would I be against it? You really are tired. A vacation will do you good. Thank you, honey. You always understand me. I do, Vicky nodded. She understood far more than she let on. That night, after Oliver fell asleep, Vicky checked the activity tracker on the computer. While they had been out of the room, her husband had gone online and browsed travel agency websites. Mexico, Cancun, 5-star all-inclusive resorts. The prices were steep, ranging from $1,500 to $3,000 per person for a week. That meant a 2-week trip for 3 people would require an absolute minimum of $9,000. A hefty sum. The next day, Vicky officially requested some paid time off, ostensibly to take the kids to the farmhouse and do some gardening. Unofficially, she needed time to handle the situation. First, she went to the bank and requested detailed, certified statements for all accounts and cards over the past 3 months. Then, she stopped by the office of her friend Marissa, a family law attorney she had known since college. Vicky, what happened? Marissa asked, surprised to see her friend's deadly serious face. I need a consultation. Purely theoretical. I'm listening. If a spouse, without his wife's knowledge, gains access to her bank cards and plans to use them, Can that be classified as theft? Marissa looked at her friend intently. Theoretically, yes, you can, if you prove that access was obtained illegally and without the cardholder's consent. But what's really going on? Vicky explained her husband's strange behavior and the family vacation plans. I see, Marissa nodded. And the deed to the farmhouse whose name is on it? Mine. I inherited it from my parents before we got married. Good. And the main house in the suburbs? Joint property. Bought while we were married. Got it. Vicky, are you sure you aren't overreacting? Maybe Oliver just wants to relax, and he was looking at the cards out of curiosity. We'll see, Vicky replied. If I'm wrong, I'll be thrilled. But her intuition told her she was right, and she would get confirmation very soon. 3 days later, her suspicions morphed into absolute certainty. Vicky came home earlier than usual and caught Oliver in her office again. This time, he wasn't just looking at the card information. He was diligently copying it down into a small notebook. Looking for insurance again? She asked from the doorway. Oliver jumped and quickly snapped the notebook shut. Yeah, just writing down the policy numbers. But Vicky had managed to see the pages, her bank card numbers, expiration dates, and the 3-digit CVV security codes. Her husband was cloning her card data. Find what you were looking for, she asked. Yeah, I think so, Oliver answered hesitantly, shoving the notebook into his shirt pocket. Great, Vicky said. Then clear out of my office. I have work to do. When Oliver left, she checked the browser history again. This time, her husband had visited sketchy websites where you could order duplicate physical magnetic stripe cards or link stolen data to digital wallets. A shady, semi-legal service, but accessible. That meant his plan was fully finalized. Vicky pulled out her phone and dialed the bank's customer service hotline. Good afternoon. My name is Victoria Collins. I need to freeze all of my credit and debit cards. For what reason, ma'am? The operator asked. Suspected data compromise. I have reason to believe the card numbers and security codes have become known to unauthorized third parties. Understood. I'll need to ask you a few security questions to verify your identity. The blocking procedure took half an hour. Vicky ordered replacement cards with entirely new account numbers. They would arrive in the mail in about a week. The cards are now blocked, the operator confirmed. Within the hour, all transactions on them will be declined. Thank you, Vicky replied. Now, all she had to do was wait. Oliver didn't suspect a thing. For the next 2 days, he was surprisingly cheerful and accommodating. He helped around the house, played with the kids, and even brought her flowers for no reason. Why are you in such a good mood? Vicky inquired. Is it a crime? Her husband laughed. Just feeling good. Looking forward to my vacation. Mom is already buying the tickets. With what money? Vicky thought to herself, but out loud she said, That's wonderful. On Friday, Oliver announced he was going over to his mother's house to finalize the trip details. He returned late that night, looking incredibly pleased and excited. So, got it all sorted? Vicky asked. Yes, everything's set. We fly out on Monday. We booked an amazing 5-star resort. It's probably best if you and the kids head up to the farmhouse on Sunday so you can get settled in early. All right, Vicky agreed. And how much is all of this costing? Don't worry your pretty head about it, Oliver waved her off. It's a man's job to make the money, and a woman's job to spend it wisely. I see, Vicky nodded. On Saturday, her husband packed his suitcase. His mood was spectacular. He hummed, joked, and talked about his plans. Can you imagine? He said, while folding his linen shirts. 2 weeks of total relaxation. The ocean, the sun, massages, excursions. I've dreamed of a vacation like this for so long. And the kids and I will be digging up the garden, Vicky noted. Oh, don't be so focused on the gardening, Oliver laughed. You'll get fresh air, get a tan, pick some wild berries. That's a vacation too. Sure is, Vicky agreed. On Sunday evening, after the kids had gone to bed, Oliver solemnly announced, Honey, tomorrow I am flying off to a luxury resort with my mother and sister, and I'm leaving you here to tend the farm. He said it with a smile, like a joke, but Vicky knew the joke was entirely true. My husband is going on a luxury resort vacation with his mother and sister, leaving me behind to do manual labor, she repeated to herself. Tomorrow, the real fun begins. The plane touched down at Cancun International Airport at exactly 2:30 p.m. local time. Oliver felt like a schoolboy skipping class. Finally, he could relax and forget about work, family drama, and whining kids. Grace looked triumphant. She had long dreamed of a trip like this with her son without her daughter-in-law, who always controlled everything and counted every penny. Christine was taking photos of everything in sight, planning to flood her social media with pictures of her glamorous luxury vacation. "Breathe it in, Ollie," his mother exclaimed as they stepped off the shuttle bus at the resort. "This is the life. This is a real vacation." Oliver nodded, taking in the five-star Dream Palace Resort. A gleaming white building with grand columns, massive grounds lined with palm trees, 3 infinity pools, and a pristine private beach. It was exactly what he had dreamed of. "This is so sick," Christine marveled. "And Vicky is out there shoveling dirt right now." They all laughed. The contrast really was striking. At the reception desk, they were greeted by a smiling concierge named Sophia. "Welcome to the Dream Palace. We have 2 luxury suites reserved for you for 14 nights. "Yes," Oliver confirmed, pulling the printed reservation from his pocket. "Excellent. I will just need to collect the remaining balance for your stay. Will you be paying with cash or card?" "Card," Oliver answered confidently, pulling one of Vicky's cloned credit cards from his digital wallet on his phone to tap the terminal. Sophia processed the payment. A few seconds of waiting. Then, red text flashed across her screen. "I apologize, sir, but the card has been declined," the girl informed him. "Perhaps it's a technical issue." "Let's try again." Oliver frowned. "Yeah, try it again." The second attempt yielded the same result. "That's weird," Oliver muttered. "What does it say?" Sophia looked at the screen. "It says, 'Card blocked by cardholder. Do you perhaps have another payment method?'" Oliver pulled out a backup physical clone he had made of Vicky's other card. The result was identical. "What is going on?" Grace asked anxiously. "I don't know," her son replied, bewildered. "The cards aren't going through." "What do you mean they aren't going through?" His mother was indignant. "We paid for the reservation. The deposit was paid with a different card," Sophia clarified. "But the primary balance for the stay must be paid upon check-in." Christine started getting nervous. "Oliver, what the hell? You said the money was sorted." "It is sorted," her brother snapped back. "It's just some technical glitch." He pulled out his phone and dialed his bank's international hotline. "Good afternoon, this is Oliver Collins. I'm having an issue with my wife's cards. They keep declining at the terminal." "One moment, let me check," the operator replied. "The cards under the name Victoria Collins have been frozen at the request of the cardholder. Reason: suspected data compromise." "What do you mean frozen?" Oliver didn't understand. The cardholder contacted the bank stating that the card data became known to unauthorized third parties. All transactions on these accounts have been suspended, pending an investigation. Oliver felt the blood drain from his face. "When did this happen?" 3 days ago." "Thank you," Oliver replied mechanically and hung up. Grace and Christine were looking at him with mounting panic. "Well?" his mother asked. "The cards are blocked," Oliver said hoarsely. Vicky reported to the bank that her data was compromised. "What do you mean blocked?" Christine didn't understand. "Completely. No transactions can go through." Grace turned red. "What does compromised mean? Who compromised them?" Oliver stayed silent. He knew exactly who and why. "Excuse me," Sophia interrupted politely. "You need to resolve the payment issue. Without payment, we cannot check you in." "How much is the remaining balance?" Oliver asked. "For 2 luxury suites for 14 nights, it is $8,400. The number sounded like a death sentence. Oliver had exactly $200 in cash in his wallet, just enough for tips and pocket money. "Mom," he turned to her, "how much cash do you have on you?" $300, Grace answered. "I assumed you were covering the main expenses." "I have $150, Christine added, "and I already spent most of my limit at duty-free. Total, $650. They were almost $8,000 short of what they needed. "What are we going to do?" Christine asked. "Hold on," Oliver said, unlocking his phone. "I'll call Vicky. We'll get this sorted out." He dialed his wife's number. The ringing seemed to last an eternity. "Hello?" Vicky's calm voice finally answered. "Honey, we have a problem," Oliver started. "Your cards are blocked for some reason. They said you called the bank?" "I did," Vicky replied shortly. "Why? What happened?" "I discovered that my card details had become known to unauthorized persons." "What unauthorized persons?" Oliver tried to feign shock. "The ones who copied down my card numbers, security codes, and tried to order duplicate cards." Oliver went dead silent. Vicky knew. Somehow, she had figured it all out. "Listen," he tried a different tactic. "We're at the hotel right now. We need to pay for the rooms. Please, just unblock the cards." "No," Vicky answered firmly. "What do you mean, no? Why?" "Because you stole my card data without my consent. That is theft." "What are you talking about? We're family. We have a joint budget." "A joint budget doesn't give you the right to secretly clone my cards and plan to drain them without telling me." Panic gripped Oliver. "Vicky, have you lost your mind? We're standing in the lobby. We need to pay." "Honey, why are the cards blocked?" "We can't even pay for the hotel," Oliver whined, tears of desperation pricking his eyes. "I know," his wife answered calmly. "They are blocked because you plan to spend my money on a luxury vacation with your mother and sister without asking my permission. But it's family money. My cards, my money. And I did not consent to blowing $8,500 on your little family getaway." "How do you know the exact amount?" Oliver asked, stunned. "I know a lot of things, including the fact that 3 days ago, you were copying my card info into a notebook in my office." Oliver realized the conversation was taking a critical, catastrophic turn. "Vicky, let's hash this out when I get home. Right now, just unblock the cards. We really need to pay." "Pay with your own money." "I don't have that kind of money." "Then that sounds like a you problem." "How is it my problem?" "You're my wife. A wife, not an ATM. And certainly not an accomplice to credit card fraud." Oliver felt the ground slipping out from under him. "Vicky, you don't understand. If we don't pay, they're going to kick us out on the street." "I understand perfectly. And what are we supposed to do?" "Solve your own problems. Like adults." "Honey, I am begging you, please help us." "No." Her response shocked him to his core, because for the first time in their 5-year marriage, Vicky had given him a hard, absolute no. "Are you serious?" "Absolutely. Enjoy your vacation, Oliver." And she hung up. Oliver stared at his phone, unable to process what was happening. Grace and Christine were waiting for an explanation. "Well?" his mother asked impatiently. "She refused to unblock the cards," her son answered, bewildered. "What do you mean she refused?" Grace exploded. "On what grounds?" "She says I stole her card data." "Stole? How dare she? You are her husband." "That's what I told her." "And what did she say?" "That a husband isn't an ATM." Christine turned red with indignation. "She is completely out of control. How can she do this to her family?" "What are we going to do now?" Grace asked. Oliver tried to gather his thoughts. The situation was critical, but not hopeless. He needed to find a way out. "Give me a minute. I'll try calling some friends. Maybe someone can wire us the cash." For the next hour, Oliver paced the lobby, frantically calling anyone he knew who might theoretically loan him a large sum. The results were dismal. The absolute maximum anyone offered was $1,000, and even then, it would take days to clear through an international wire transfer. Meanwhile, Sophia, the receptionist, was starting to lose patience. "Excuse me, but we need to know if you are checking in. We have a wait list for these suites." "We are checking in," Grace answered confidently. "Just a minor delay with a bank transfer." "I understand, but the payment must be processed within the hour, or the rooms will be released to other guests." When the receptionist stepped away, Christine grabbed her brother's arm. "Oliver, what the hell is going on? You said everything was organized." "It was organized. How was I supposed to know Vicky would pull a stunt like this?" "You should have anticipated it," Grace lectured. "I always told you, you need to keep women on a tight leash. You gave her too much freedom." "Mom, Now is not the time for a lecture, Oliver snapped. It is exactly the time. You see what happens when you indulge a woman's whims? It's not a whim, it's... Oliver trailed off. He couldn't confess to his mother and sister that he really had planned to steal his wife's money without her knowledge. It's what? Christine pressed. A misunderstanding. Vicky misunderstood the situation. Did you explain it to her properly? I tried. She won't listen. Grace was boiling with indignation. What do you mean she won't listen? A husband speaks, a wife should obey. Where in the world does a wife leave her husband stranded like this? Mom, keep your voice down, Oliver pleaded, looking around. Their argument was beginning to draw stares from other tourists in the lobby. I will not keep my voice down. This is outrageous. We flew all the way here to relax, and your wife is making fools out of us. Maybe you should try calling her again, Christine suggested. Explain it normally, without getting emotional. Oliver dialed Vicky's number again. This time, it went straight to voicemail. The subscriber you have dialed is currently unavailable. She's not picking up, he announced. Turned her phone off, Christine guessed. What a bitch. Time was running out. Half an hour later, Sophia approached them with an apologetic smile. I'm so sorry to bother you, but time is up. Are you able to process the payment? Just a little more time, Oliver begged. We're waiting on a wire. Unfortunately, I cannot hold them any longer. The rooms must be released. What do you mean released? Grace couldn't comprehend it. We paid for the booking. The deposit only covers the reservation hold. Full payment is required at check-in. It is standard policy. And if we can't pay right now? Oliver asked. Then, unfortunately, we cannot check you in. However, we can suggest an alternative. What alternative? There are budget hostels in downtown Cancun. The rates are significantly lower. Christine was horrified. Are you kidding me? We're supposed to go to a gross hostel instead of a 5-star resort? It's just temporary, Oliver tried to calm her down. Just until we figure out the money. What is there to figure out? Call your wife and demand it. Are you a man or not? Christine, stop yelling, Oliver snapped. The situation is complicated. There is nothing complicated about it, Grace interjected. You have a stubborn, arrogant woman who decided to punish her husband. You need to put her in her place. How? Oliver asked. Fly home right now and deal with her. Show her who is the boss in that house. Mom, our return tickets aren't for 2 weeks. So change them. With what money? We don't even have enough for a hotel room. Grace faltered. She was used to solving problems by issuing directives, but that approach was useless here. Sophia patiently waited for their decision. Finally, Oliver surrendered. Fine. Give me the address of a budget hostel. Cancun Backpackers Hostel, about 3 miles from here. It's $30 a night for a double room. Quick mental math told Oliver that with their remaining cash, they could survive for a week, tops. And that was assuming they ate instant noodles. All right, Oliver sighed. Write down the address. Moving into the hostel was a profound shock for Grace. Instead of luxury suites with ocean views, they were in cramped, dingy rooms with bunk beds. Instead of a gourmet buffet, there was a communal kitchen where backpackers cooked their own meals. Instead of spa treatments and resort entertainment, there was a staticky TV in the lobby and a broken coffee vending machine. This is a nightmare, his mother groaned, inspecting the room. How are we supposed to relax in these conditions? It's temporary, Oliver repeated like a broken record. We'll figure it out tomorrow. What is there to figure out tomorrow? Will money just fall from the sky? Meanwhile, Christine had discovered another glaring issue. Back at the airport in Dallas, she had gone on a massive shopping spree using her credit card, buying a designer handbag, gold earrings, perfume, and expensive cosmetics. The total was over $1,500. Her credit card bill was due next month, and she didn't have the funds to cover it. Oliver, she pulled her brother aside. We have another problem. What? I put all those duty-free things on credit. I thought you were going to use your wife's card to pay off the balance. How much? Oliver asked, doomed. $1,500. Christine, have you lost your mind? You thought I had endless cash? I expected you to cover my expenses. I never said I was covering your shopping sprees. Well, how else was I supposed to interpret? We're going all out for this vacation. Oliver clutched his head. The problems were multiplying by the hour. When Grace heard about her daughter's debt, she flew into a rage. Christine, how could you be so irresponsible? Mom, I didn't know Vicky was going to pull a stunt like this. What does Vicky have to do with this? What do outsiders have to do with it at all? You should have used your brain. Outsiders, Oliver repeated. Mom, Vicky is my wife. She was your wife, Grace spat back maliciously. Now she's nobody. A real wife doesn't abandon her husband when he's in trouble. Maybe she's right, Oliver said hesitantly. Maybe I really did cross a line with those cards. What kind of nonsense are you spewing? His mother erupted. You are the husband. You have the right to use family money, but I didn't ask her permission. And I shouldn't have to. A husband is the head of the family. He makes the decisions. Mom, times have changed. Nothing has changed. The only thing that's changed is that women have gotten completely out of control. The first day of their vacation turned into a living hell. Instead of relaxing on the beach, they were fighting in a dingy hostel. Instead of a steak dinner, they ate cheap sandwiches from a corner bodega. Instead of planning excursions, they were rationing their remaining cash. By evening, Oliver tried calling Vicky again. The phone was still off. What are we going to do? Christine asked. Think, her brother replied. What is there to think about? We have to act. Fly home and deal with your wife. Force her to unblock those cards. With what money are we flying home, and how exactly am I going to force her? Christine thought about it. The plan really hadn't been very well thought out. Maybe we could try to earn some money ourselves, she suggested. How? I don't know. Get a job at a hotel or something? Grace looked at her daughter like she belonged in an asylum. Christine, we came here to vacation, not to scrub floors. Mom, what else are we supposed to do? We have no money. We can't even afford flights home. Exactly. And it is entirely the fault of that daughter-in-law of mine. Mom, stop blaming Vicky, Oliver said exhaustedly. It's my own fault. Well, glad you finally figured that out, his mother remarked sourly. The night was sleepless. Oliver lay on the hard mattress of the hostel bunk, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how everything had gone so wrong. The plan had seemed foolproof. Vacation on his wife's dime, and explain everything once they got home. Vicky usually didn't object to family expenses, but he had failed to account for one massive detail. Vicky wasn't as naive as he thought. She had figured out his plot and prepared a devastating counterstrike. Now, they were stranded in a foreign country with no money, mounting debt, and the prospect of spending their dream vacation in a cheap hostel. Meanwhile, at home, Vicky was calmly going about her business with absolutely no intention of bailing them out. For the first time in 15 years of marriage, Oliver realized he had severely underestimated his wife, and that realization terrified him far more than the lack of money. While Oliver and his family were navigating their financial catastrophe in a Mexican hostel, Vicky was methodically putting her life in order back in Texas. On Monday morning, as her husband's plane disappeared into the clouds, she didn't drive out to the hill country to dig in the dirt. Instead, she headed straight to the downtown office of her attorney friend, Marissa. All right, Marissa said, leaning back in her leather chair after hearing the full, detailed story. Now I understand why you needed a theoretical consultation. What's the plan? I'm filing for divorce, Vicky answered firmly. But first, I want to compile all the evidence of his financial misconduct. What kind of misconduct? Vicky pulled a thick binder from her designer tote bag. For the last 6 months, I've been keeping a shadow ledger of our household budget. The official one that Oliver knows about, and the real one. Marissa raised a curious eyebrow. Show me. Vicky spread out a myriad of bank statements, receipts, and tax documents across the polished mahogany desk. Look, Oliver claims his official salary at the dealership is $60,000 a year. But I discovered he has a commission and bonus structure he's been hiding from me. He actually pulls in over $100,000 a year. How did you find this out? We use the same CPA for our taxes. I requested a verification of income for my husband, supposedly to qualify for a loan to renovate the farmhouse. Oliver thinks I'm completely in the dark. Marissa studied the documents. So he's hiding roughly $3,500 a month from you. Exactly. Over the last 6 months, that's over $20,000. Money that should have gone into our joint community property budget, but which he managed unilaterally. All right. What else? A secret credit card I knew nothing about. Vicky pulled out another statement. Oliver opened it in his name 3 months ago. The limit is $20,000. He's already maxed out $12,000 of it. On what? Gifts for his mother and sister, expensive dinners with coworkers, golf outings, entertainment. Not a single cent spent on our family or the house. Marissa shook her head in disbelief. Men truly amaze me with their stupidity sometimes. He seriously thought you wouldn't find out? He thought I was too trusting, Vicky smirked. And he was right up to a point. And the house in the suburbs? Whose name is on the deed? Joint ownership. Bought while we were married with community funds, but you provided the vast majority of the capital. Yes, my salary as a VP of Finance is significantly higher than Oliver's. Plus, I received a massive corporate bonus last year after successfully passing a federal audit. In total, I contributed 70% of the equity in that house. Marissa took notes on her legal pad. Do we have the paper trail? Every single bank transfer, W-2, pay stub, and bonus letter, it's all documented. And the farmhouse? Inherited from my parents, deeded exclusively to me, before we were married. Perfect. Marissa set her pen down. With this paper trail, we can absolutely argue for a disproportionate division of community property in your favor due to his financial dissipation and fraud. But you realize Oliver is going to fight this tooth and nail? Let him fight. I have an ace up my sleeve that he doesn't know about. Which is? Vicky pulled out a final folder. 6 months ago, I opened an entirely separate, individual bank account. I started direct depositing a portion of my salary and all my bonuses there. Oliver thinks my full paycheck is still hitting the joint account like it always did. So, you have an independent war chest? Yes. I have about $40,000 saved up. That's more than enough for a luxury apartment lease, legal retainers, and keeping myself comfortable during the divorce proceedings. Marissa looked at her friend with absolute awe. Vicky, you are a shark. You calculated this 6 months in advance. A year in advance, Vicky corrected her. I realized a long time ago that I couldn't live like this anymore. Oliver treats me more like an ATM and a maid every day. His mother and sister are openly disrespectful, and I was just pretending everything was fine. It's time to drop the curtain on this circus. Then let's get to work. I'm filing the divorce petition and the temporary restraining order on the assets today. The following days were a whirlwind of errands and legal maneuvers for Vicky. She filed the divorce petition, updated the deed records for her farmhouse, and transferred all her remaining liquid assets into her untouchable personal account. She also contacted the utility companies to separate the billing for the suburban house. On Thursday, she finally called Oliver. He didn't pick up immediately. He was likely still hoping his wife would come to her senses and beg for forgiveness. Hello. Her husband's voice sounded utterly defeated. Hi, Vicky said brightly. How are things? Things are terrible. We're living in a Roach Motel hostel. We are completely out of money. Vicky, let's just talk like normal people. I know I was wrong about the cards. You know? Yes, I should have asked your permission, but it's too late to change anything now. Just help us get a flight home, and we'll sort it out when we get back. All right, Vicky agreed unexpectedly. I'll help. Oliver perked up. Really? You're unblocking the cards? No, the cards stay blocked, but I will wire you the money for return tickets. Straight to the airline, not to your account. And are you going to send us some cash to survive on until then? You can earn your own survival cash. Hotels are always hiring. Are you telling us to get jobs? Oliver was in disbelief. What else? Money doesn't grow on trees. Vicky, we came here to vacation. I know. And how's the vacation going? Having fun? Oliver fell silent. It was painfully obvious the vacation had mutated into a horror show. When are you buying the return tickets? He asked. Tomorrow. For a flight next week. Why next week? Because I think a week of hard labor in a Mexican resort will build some character. Maybe you'll learn the value of $1. Vicky, Are you mocking us? No. I am giving you the opportunity to earn your room and board. Consider it a financial literacy program. And she hung up again. Back in the Mexican hostel, the news that they would have to find jobs was met with varying reactions. Oliver took it somewhat philosophically. After all, they had no choice. Christine threw a tantrum, but quickly accepted reality when she realized the alternative was actual starvation. But Grace took the suggestion as a vicious, personal insult. I am going to mop floors, she shrieked in the cramped hostel room. I am a retired vice principal. I have a master's degree, and I am going to clean up after tourists. Mom, there is no other way, Oliver explained exhaustedly. There is a way. Demand that your wife fulfill her obligations. What obligations? The obligations of a wife. To support her husband, to help her family. Mom, she is helping. She's paying for our flights home. In a week. What are we supposed to eat for a week? Whatever we earn. Grace sat on the lumpy mattress and burst into tears. For the first time in years, her ironclad authority was crumbling, and her grand plans were reduced to ashes. But they had nowhere else to turn. The next day, the entire family set out to find day labor. Oliver had the most luck. He was hired as a kitchen porter at a massive all-inclusive resort down the strip. The work was grueling. Washing industrial-sized pots, peeling mountains of vegetables, hauling massive bags of rotting garbage. But it paid $30 a day, plus a free meal in the employee cafeteria. Christine was hired as a housekeeper at the same resort. She earned $25 a day for cleaning rooms. The work felt like torture to her, stripping filthy bed linens, scrubbing toilets, wiping down showers. But she had no choice. Grace got the most humiliating job of all, groundskeeper. Sweeping the hot concrete pathways, picking up trash from the lawns, and emptying public garbage cans. $15 a day. This is a mockery, she sobbed after her first shift. My students and colleagues respected me. And here I am, acting like a common street sweeper. Mom, just endure it, Oliver begged. 1 week, and we go home. And what happens when we get home? Do you really think your wife is just going to forgive and forget? Oliver didn't know what to say. Deep down, he suspected that returning home would just be the beginning of a much worse nightmare. Working at the resort proved to be a brutal physical and mental trial for all three of them. Oliver managed the physical labor reasonably well. He was in decent shape, and washing dishes didn't require much mental bandwidth. Christine came back to the hostel, crying every single day. She had never done a day of hard, physical labor in her life. But it was worst of all for Grace. A woman who was used to commanding authority and lecturing others was now forced to submit to a tough hotel manager who didn't care about her past credentials and treated her like the lowest-rung employee. Grace, faster. Andale. He would bark when he saw her sluggishly sweeping a pathway under the blazing Mexican sun. Grace accelerated her pace, but half an hour later, she would inevitably fall behind again. By the middle of the week, she suffered a complete nervous breakdown. That evening, returning to the hostel, she collapsed onto her bunk bed and began to wail. I can't do this anymore, she sobbed. I can't. It's too much. Mom, we only have 3 days left. Oliver tried to comfort her. I won't survive 3 days. Today they made me scrub the toilets by the main pool. Toilets, Oliver. I am a respected educator. Christine was also at her breaking point, and my supervisor screamed at me today because I left a smudge on a bathroom mirror. They made me re-clean the entire suite. I don't even clean my own apartment this thoroughly, and they expect perfection. Just hold on, Oliver pleaded. We're going home soon. And what's waiting for us at home? His mother asked bitterly. What exactly is waiting for us? Oliver didn't know, but he had a sinking feeling it was nothing good. On Friday, Vicky finalized the plane tickets. As promised, the flight was booked for Monday. 3 more days of grueling hotel labor, and the family could finally fly back to Texas. Tickets are booked, Oliver informed his mother and sister. We fly out Monday. Thank God, Grace exhaled. This hell is finally over. But the real hell was just beginning. The plane landed at DFW Airport on Monday evening. Oliver, Grace, and Christine sat in the cabin in total silence. Each was lost in their own thoughts. A week of manual labor in a Mexican resort had been shock therapy. For the first time in their lives, they understood what it meant to earn a living through backbreaking physical toil. Oliver kept replaying the conversation with Vicky in his head. His wife had been uncharacteristically ruthless and decisive. She had never used that tone with him before. Something fundamental had shifted in their marriage. Grace couldn't let go of the humiliation. Used to reverence and status, she had spent a week as a lowly janitor. What infuriated her most was that the architect of all her suffering was Vicky, a woman she had always dismissed as a gray, boring mouse. Christine just wanted to forget the nightmare and return to her easy life, but she knew it wouldn't be that simple. A $1,500 credit card bill was hanging over her head, and her receptionist's salary barely covered her rent, let alone high-interest debt. They took the public train from the airport. Nobody wanted to waste their hard-earned cash on an Uber. Over the course of the week in Mexico, the three of them had earned a combined total of roughly $200, and they needed to guard every penny. As they walked up the driveway of the suburban house, Oliver noticed an unfamiliar car parked out front. A white sedan, with a government seal on the door. "Whose car is that?" Christine asked. "I don't know," her brother replied, but his stomach dropped. As they approached the front porch, they heard voices coming from inside the open front door. Standing in the foyer were two uniformed sheriff's deputies and a man in a sharp business suit. "Are you Oliver Collins?" the man in the suit asked, as the weary family stepped onto the porch. "Yes," Oliver answered cautiously. "I am a process server with the county. We have a court order regarding a temporary restraining order and an asset inventory for a pending divorce proceeding." Oliver felt the earth open up beneath him. "What divorce?" "Your spouse, Victoria Collins, has filed a petition for the dissolution of marriage and a disproportionate division of community property. The judge has issued a temporary injunction to freeze all marital assets." "What does that mean?" Grace interjected loudly. "It means that pending a court ruling, the property is being inventoried and cannot be sold, transferred, or damaged," the server explained. Oliver pushed past them into the house with trembling hands. Inside, another massive shock awaited him. The house was half empty. Vicky wasn't there. She had packed up all her personal belongings, her furniture, her electronics, and moved out entirely. "Where is my wife?" Oliver asked the deputies. "We don't know, sir," one of them replied flatly. "She wasn't here when we arrived." "I see. We were out of the country." "Understood. We are just finishing the inventory." For the next 2 hours, the deputies and a court-appointed appraiser documented the remaining property. The remaining furniture, the appliances, the electronics, everything was logged into a formal report. Official tamper-evident seals were placed on the refrigerator, the massive flat-screen TV, and the washer and dryer. "What does this mean?" Grace demanded. "It means you cannot sell, gift, or remove this property from the premises until the judge rules on the asset division," the appraiser explained patiently. "Can we still use them?" "You can, but you must maintain them. If anything is intentionally damaged or sold, you will be held in contempt of court and potentially face criminal charges." When the officials finally left, the family stood alone in the hollow house. It wasn't entirely empty. The heavy furniture and appliances remained, but the soul of the home was gone. There were no traces of Vicky, none of her expensive cosmetics in the bathroom, none of her books on the shelves, no photos of her on the walls. "She actually filed for divorce," Oliver stated, shell-shocked. "Apparently so," his mother replied sourly. "And what happens now?" "Court," Oliver said grimly. "Asset division, lawyers, the whole nightmare." "Asset division? But you don't even have kids," Christine exclaimed. "For the house. She owns half of it. More than half, actually." Grace turned pale. "You mean you're going to have to buy her out of her half of the house? Or sell the house and split the cash? But then where will we live?" "I don't know," Oliver answered honestly. The following weeks descended into a legal hellscape. Vicky's powerhouse attorney flooded Oliver with motions, discovery requests, and brutal demands. It turned out Vicky wasn't just filing for divorce. She was seeking a disproportionate share of the community estate, claiming financial fraud and the dissipation of marital assets due to Oliver's hidden income and secret debts. Furthermore, She demanded that Oliver be solely responsible for the $12,000 credit card debt he had racked up without her knowledge. How did she find all this out? Oliver panicked as he read through the mountain of legal documents. The answer was delivered during their first mediation hearing. Vicky arrived in the polished conference room alongside Marissa, carrying a massive legal binder. She looked calm, radiant, and utterly untouchable. The petitioner is requesting an unequal division of community property, the mediator began, looking over his glasses. Does the respondent agree to these terms? No, Oliver's hastily hired budget lawyer replied. My client believes the demands are entirely unreasonable and punitive. Very well. Petitioner, please justify your demands. Vicky sat up straight. For the last 6 months, I have maintained a forensic accounting of our household's finances. I have irrefutable, documented proof that the respondent has been intentionally hiding his true income and committing financial fraud against our community estate. She handed the mediator a thick stack of bank statements, W-2S, dealership commission structures, and the statements from the secret credit card. The respondent's actual income is not the $60,000 he claimed to me, but over $100,000. He has been hiding roughly $3,500 a month in commission bonuses. Over the last 6 months, he has siphoned over $20,000 into a private account and spent it exclusively on luxury personal expenses, without my knowledge or consent. The mediator scrutinized the documents. Respondent, do you have a comment? Oliver's lawyer tried to object. My client was entitled to use his own income for personal expenses. He is, the mediator agreed, but he is not entitled to actively conceal income and incur secret debts while relying on his spouse to fund the marital estate. That is textbook financial dissipation. But it got worse. Vicky produced the deed and inheritance paperwork for the Hill Country farmhouse, proving it was strictly her separate property. Then, she produced the closing documents and wire transfers from when they purchased the suburban house. Furthermore, she stated coldly, I am requesting the court award me 70% of the equity in the marital home, as I can prove with these wire transfers that I personally provided 70% of the down payment and the subsequent mortgage payments using my separate corporate bonuses. That's a lie. Oliver finally snapped, losing his composure. We bought that house together. The documents say otherwise, Vicky replied, unfazed. Here are my pay stubs. Here are the bank wires directly from my account to the escrow company, and here is the documentation of the corporate bonus I received for passing a federal audit. The mediator meticulously reviewed the paperwork. The accounting was flawless. Every single dollar was tracked. Every expense was justified. When they finally went before the judge, a month later, the verdict was swift and brutal. The court finds the petitioner's claims of financial dissipation to be entirely valid, the judge ruled. The respondent is ordered to buy out the petitioner's 70% equity stake in the marital home, calculated at $210,000. The farmhouse remains the sole and separate property of the petitioner. Furthermore, the respondent is solely liable for the $12,000 debt incurred on the undisclosed credit card. $210,000? Oliver choked out in the courtroom. That is 70% of the current market equity, the judge clarified. Payment must be rendered within 90 days. If the respondent cannot secure financing, the property will be forcefully liquidated, sold at market value, and the proceeds divided according to this ruling. Walking out of the courthouse, Oliver felt like he had been hit by a freight train. 210,000 wasasum hakud. T-dream off pulling together, even if it worked for 5 years straight. Grace and Kristen were waiting for him on a bench in the hallway. Well? His mother asked anxiously. 210,000. I have 90 days to pay her. Oh my God, Grace gasped, clutching her chest and sinking back onto the bench. Where are we supposed to get that kind of money? Nowhere, her son replied darkly. We have to sell the house. But where will we live? Are we supposed to rent some dump or squeeze into my tiny one-bedroom apartment? Grace imagined the three of them crammed into her small retirement condo and nearly started crying. Christine remained completely silent. She was thinking about her $1,500 credit card debt, which was currently racking up 24% interest that she absolutely could not afford to pay. "It's over," Oliver whispered. "My life is ruined." He was right. The following months were a living hell for his family. Oliver had to take on a second job working at the car dealership by day and loading boxes at an Amazon fulfillment center by night. He slept 4 hours a day, but he still couldn't make ends meet. The house was sold. After paying out Vicky's 70% share, covering the remaining mortgage, and paying his exorbitant legal fees, Oliver was left with roughly $30,000. With that money, he rented a cramped, outdated 2-bedroom apartment on the far outskirts of Dallas and moved his mother and sister in with him. Grace could not cope with her sudden loss of status. She was no longer the matriarch, holding court in her son's spacious suburban home. She couldn't dictate terms, and she couldn't boss around a daughter-in-law. She had been reduced to an ordinary, bitter retiree, sitting in a cramped apartment, complaining about the world. "This is all because of that Vicky of yours," she would repeat daily. "Mom, shut up," Oliver would answer exhaustedly. "Vicky didn't do this. I did. I ruined everything." "How can you say that? She bankrupted us. She protected what was hers. I was the idiot who thought I could steal her money without her noticing." Christine was also forced to drastically change her lifestyle. The crushing weight of her high-interest credit card debt hung around her neck, and a massive chunk of her meager salon salary went straight to the bank every month. Designer bags, luxury spa treatments, and wild weekends were a thing of the past. "Oliver," she said to him one evening, "I don't understand how you were so blind." "Blind to what?" "To Vicky. How did you not notice she was planning all of this?" "I didn't notice," her brother agreed hollowly. "I thought she was just simple and trusting. Turns out she was a lethal snake." "Not a snake," Oliver corrected her. "Just a brilliant woman who got tired of putting up with our disrespect." Christine looked at her brother in shock. "Are you actually defending her?" "Yes, because I finally realized she was completely right." Meanwhile, Vicky was thriving in her new life. Using the $210,000 payout from the house sale and her personal savings, she bought a gorgeous, modern 2-bedroom condo right in the heart of downtown Dallas. She still owned her farmhouse in the hill country, and now she could spend her weekends there, relaxing on the porch with a glass of wine, without ever hearing a single complaint about digging potatoes. Her career at Apex Construction continued to soar. Her colleagues respected her sharp intellect, and the executive board valued her ruthless efficiency. Massive career opportunities were opening up for her. Sometimes, sitting alone on the balcony of her high-rise condo watching the city lights, Vicky thought about the price of her victory. 15 years of marriage had turned out to be an illusion. The man she had trusted was entirely willing to steal her hard-earned money just to fund a joyride for his entitled mother and sister. "Maybe I was too brutal?" she occasionally asked herself. But then she would remember the image of the three of them plotting a luxury Mexican vacation while trying to banish her to do manual labor in the dirt, and the secret credit cards, and the hidden income. And she knew, with absolute certainty, that she had done the exact right thing. Freedom was incredibly expensive, but it was worth every single penny. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Vicky's phone buzzed with a text from Oliver. "I'm so sorry. You were right about everything. I regret losing a wife like you every single day." Vicky read the message, stared at the screen for a moment, and deleted it without replying. The past belonged in the past. Ahead of her was a beautiful new life, where no one would ever dictate to her whether she should be digging in the dirt or tanning on a beach.